The Windfall Elimination Provision and the government pension offset are not just technical adjustments buried deep in policy manuals. They represent decades of tension between fairness and complexity, between promises made and outcomes delivered, and between how programs were designed and how modern careers actually function. For many people, these provisions are not theoretical. They are the difference between expectation and reality, between a retirement plan that felt secure and one that suddenly feels uncertain. At their core, these provisions were created to address a concern that seemed reasonable at the time. The system was designed to replace a higher percentage of earnings for lower-income workers. When individuals spent part of their careers in jobs not covered by the program and later qualified for benefits through other work, policymakers feared those individuals would appear, on paper, to be lower earners than they truly were. The concern was that they might receive a benefit that was disproportionately generous compared to their lifetime earnings. The response was to adjust the formula. That response became the Windfall Elimination Provision. The government pension offset followed a similar logic but applied it to spousal and survivor benefits. The idea was that individuals receiving a government pension based on non-covered work should not also receive full spousal or survivor benefits as if they had no pension at all. Again, the goal was balance. The goal was equity. The goal was to prevent what was perceived as an unintended advantage. But intentions and outcomes are not always aligned, especially over time. What makes these provisions so difficult is not just their impact, but their opacity. Many affected workers do not learn about these reductions until late in their careers, sometimes only when they apply for benefits. They planned based on statements that did not clearly reflect how these rules would apply. They made life decisions, when to retire, whether to continue working, how to support family members, without full visibility. That gap between expectation and reality erodes trust, even when the policy itself has a logical foundation. The Windfall Elimination Provision modifies the benefit formula in a way that can significantly reduce monthly payments. For some, the reduction is manageable. For others, particularly those with long public service careers, combined with modest covered earnings, the impact feels severe. Teachers, firefighters, police officers, and public employees often fall into this category. These are not individuals seeking an advantage. These are people who served communities, paid into one system, and expected that partial participation in another would still provide proportional value. The government pension offset can feel even more abrupt. It reduces spousal or survivor benefits by 2/3 of the amount of the government pension. In many cases, this eliminates the benefit entirely. For surviving spouses who relied on that income, the effect can be jarring. The logic may be technical, but the lived experience is emotional. Financial planning does not happen in spreadsheets alone. It happens in kitchens, hospital rooms, and living rooms where decisions are shaped by real human needs. From a system perspective, these provisions are often defended as necessary to maintain fairness and solvency. That argument deserves respect. A system that overpays some participants undermines confidence and sustainability. However, fairness is not only about formulas, it is also about clarity, proportionality, and timing. When rules are so complex that they surprise people late in life, fairness begins to feel theoretical rather than practical. Another challenge is that work patterns have changed dramatically since these provisions were introduced. Careers are no longer linear. Public and private employment often overlap. People move between sectors more frequently. Dual-income households are more common. The assumption that non-covered work represents a separate and fully compensating retirement system is not always accurate. Some government pensions are modest. Some were reduced. Some were never designed to replace a full lifetime benefit. Applying a blunt offset does not always reflect these nuances. There is also a broader question of incentives. When people believe that additional work will result in disproportionately small benefits, participation declines. This is especially true for experienced workers who could continue contributing their skills. A system that discourages participation undermines its own funding base. The interaction between these provisions and labor supply is rarely discussed publicly, but it matters. Transparency is another critical issue. Complexity alone is not the problem. Complexity without communication is. If individuals clearly understood how these provisions worked early in their careers, they could plan accordingly. The failure is not that rules exist. The failure is that those rules are often invisible until it is too late to adjust. Any system that relies on informed participation must prioritize informed communication. Reform discussions around these provisions have gained momentum because of this disconnect. Proposals range from full repeal to partial modification to the introduction of more proportional formulas. Each option carries trade-offs. Repeal increases costs and raises equity questions. Partial reform requires careful calibration. But the conversation itself reflects a recognition that the current structure does not align well with modern work realities. A more proportional approach could preserve the original intent while reducing the sense of penalty. Adjustments that better reflect actual lifetime earnings rather than blunt offsets could restore confidence without undermining fairness. Phased reductions, improved minimum guarantees, or clearer integration between systems are all concepts worth serious evaluation. It is also important to consider the message sent to public servants. When policies disproportionately affect those who served in education, public safety, or local government, perceptions matter. These individuals contributed in different ways, often under different compensation structures. Ensuring that policy reflects respect for that service is not merely symbolic. It reinforces the social contract that underpins collective programs. From a fiscal standpoint, any reform must be responsibly funded. Long-term stability cannot be compromised for short-term relief. But fiscal responsibility and humane policy are not opposites. Thoughtful design can achieve both. The key is honest analysis, not exaggerated claims on either side. Ultimately, the Windfall Elimination Provision and the government pension offset highlight a broader truth about complex systems. Rules created to solve one problem can create others over time. Revisiting those rules is not an admission of failure. It is a sign of maturity. Systems that endure are systems that adapt. The goal should not be to eliminate every imperfection, but to ensure that outcomes align with reasonable expectations. People should understand the rules that govern their futures. Benefits should reflect contributions in ways that feel intuitive, not punitive. And reform should be driven by data, transparency, and a clear-eyed view of modern work realities. When policy balances fairness with clarity and sustainability with trust, it strengthens not just the program, but the confidence people place in institutions. That confidence is ultimately the most valuable asset any long-term system can have.